Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Bitcoin seeing more ugly price action, if you are a bull, that is. But those of you tuning into these live streams should not be too surprised, as I was warning all weekend and even a couple days before that we were trading at some resistance for this ongoing 4-hour swing. We literally had all weekend to prepare for this morning's dump, as we literally just hung out and traded sideways at resistance for several days on low weekend volatility. And guys, I want to make this clear. None of this price action that has been happening recently is anything crazy. Volatile, yes, but crazy or unexpected, not at all. Basically, the 4-hour structure has been respected crazy well, if anything. I, for one, seized the opportunity to short resistance once again. And those of you in my live streams and in my Telegram were well aware of my thoughts on resistance, which indeed did play out. Here in the Telegram, I was warning that we were trading at resistance, not only from a structural point of view, but also with my indicators adding up as a little bit of confluence. And we got that beautiful dump this morning. You guys, again, like I said, it was nothing crazy other than, yes, obviously volatile, but nothing crazy happening in the charts, you guys. And unfortunately, a lot of people overlook the very basics of technical analysis. And in my opinion, at least, there is literally nothing more important than day one type of structure analysis. Basically, and what I mean by that is simply lower lows, which confirm lower highs on a trend, and higher highs, which confirm higher lows on a trend. And this is a perfect example that on the 4-hour here, I've went over this a few times, that this whole uptrend, we never did even lose a micro higher low, right? And I'm talking even if we just get some sort of a pullback, considering that new structure altogether. I mean, let's just say this was our high, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. So notice every time we get a higher high, I'm just going to the lowest point between the 2 points. And notice right here, nothing changes, but we get a higher high again, confirms a higher low, higher high, higher low, because it's the lowest point. And notice what happens. We eventually lose that structure there. Let me just erase a few things. And ever since that, we've been doing the opposite, right? After setting this low, we now have a lower low, and then we set another lower low. That confirms this as our lower high. Lower low here, lower high here, another lower low here, lower high here once again. Or sorry, actually between this one and this one here, the lower high was actually about here. But after getting this low and this lower low, the highest point between the two was right here. And this is the exact resistance that I was talking about all weekend. Every stream I did this weekend, and even the last couple last week, I was warning that we did have this little, I'm going to call it a microstructure break. It's not that micro because it is a 4-hour trend. So we obviously had lots of time, like I was talking about. But micro as in, yeah, it's not a very clear pivot, obviously, but the market structure does work out, just like I was just talking to you guys about, just as far as each individual swing and really micro analyzing each swing. That is the structure we had. Now, the thing is, guys, every time we get this sort of a bounce, everyone thinks, oh, yeah, we're getting such a nice bounce. This was a little fake out. And then they start getting excited at resistance. And that's where people start longing right into resistance. Whereas a good understanding of this market structure, like I said, it's so important. And really, it's the foundation, but revolving around how I pull my Fibonacci's, how I look at Stuber fibs, how I look at swing fails. It all comes back to this type of basic market structure, where in a case like this, we have our lower lows. Therefore, we have our confirmed lower high. It's totally natural to end up breaking a level like this and reclaiming it and getting some sort of a bounce. But understand there's a big difference between let's just say we bottomed here, we got some sort of a double bottom, and then we come back up to resistance. A lot of people think that that's the exact same as what we did here, but there's a very large difference when you have that structural break favoring momentum of one side, right? So the fact that we have lower lows, that means we have a confirmed lower high. And that means that any bounce up to that level, unless we break my invalidation zone, unless that happens, it's still a bearish trend. So either we had to break these highs or we had to break these lows. Now, for me, I personally don't care. I don't have, well, I have a bearish bias right now, but overall, I just like markets to be volatile. I don't really care which way it goes. Either way, you can trade and make money. But unfortunately, a lot of people really like to see that green side of things and only want to see the prices go up. And unfortunately for that, you guys, we have a new lower low, right? This dump here over the course of the morning, we got a new lower low. So a lot of people are going to make the same mistake. And to be honest, well, maybe it plays out, right? A lot of people, if we end up bouncing to resistance, okay, I want to be very clear about that. That's a big if we get a bounce up to these levels, you'll most likely start to see FOMO kicking in right as we end up getting to resistance again. Now, I am actually going to change this because, I mean, this is a perfect example that we can change my structure a little bit because, like I said, we now actually have a lower low on the trend once again. That means where's the highest point between the two? So now it's actually this point here. So unfortunately, it's not a huge change. It's not like I can really tighten up our invalidation levels or anything like that, but this would be my new confirmed lower high on the trend, which would be approximately 111.3 thousand, 111.3 to 111.2, whatever, anywhere in there would be our confirmed lower high on this current 4-hour swing. Unfortunately, at this point, that it will remain the same until we either take out these lows or we take out these highs. If we take out the lows, then obviously we would have another lower low. And where's the highest point between the two? That would move our invalidation of the downtrend down significantly, right? Just because of how the structure formed. But so far, how we have it is much like this. So our resistance is actually up here. So any sort of bounce, just understand, guys, that there is resistance up ahead if we end up getting that bounce. So again, this is something I know I'm really drilling at home here. I think this is honestly, in my opinion, at least, this is the very most important thing that you can truly understand, like have a good, strong grasp on. This basically trumps absolutely anything else for me. Yes, this is how I pull my fibs, and I obviously enter based on fibs, but that's more so looking for the pullbacks with these structure breaks. But the reason I'm drilling this home so hard is because, guys, a lot of people get into trading and overcomplicate things very quickly, when you will make so many less mistakes and you will misanalyze things so much less if you just keep things simple and have a very strong understanding of very basic stuff. And guys, these lower lows and higher highs, that kind of structure, that is literally day one analysis stuff. But most people skip right over it and start going into all these fancy indicators and stuff. Yeah, I obviously have indicator strategies as well, but having a good, firm understanding of basic market structure, higher highs and lower lows, goes such a far way in this market. I promise you it will go so much, well, unless you have some sort of crazy intel. But that basic level of understanding in structure and technical analysis will go so much further than trying to analyze the entire global economy and how it's going to react to certain leaders' tweets, you know, announcements of tariffs, FOMC meetings, rate cuts, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, those things do make a difference in the market. I don't want to pretend those things do not drive the market, but trying to trade them is completely different than having a basic understanding of them. Trading fundamentals is very difficult. And if you think that you are going to have an edge by understanding the entire global economy and how it's going to react in every sort of butterfly effect type of way, if you think that's easier to understand than a few basic levels and a few colorful lines, I've got very bad news for you. Honestly, go back, literally day one stuff, really understand structure like that, and do back testing, right? From there, use that replay feature on Tradingview and go back and make sure you have a good understanding. Go back and back test your setups. Have a systematic trade strategy that has entries, has invalidations, and has take profits. If you don't have all three of those things on your radar when entering a position, you don't have a legit position. You have something that you are gambling on with a gut feeling. Whereas if you have those rules in place, it's something that you can repeat over and over and be consistently profitable. And again, guys, I just cannot stress enough how important that market structure is. But so basically for now, looking at it, just moving forward here, Like I said, on the 4-hour trend here, we have resistance at approximately 111.3K. Um, is it possible we go significantly lower? Yeah, absolutely, it is possible. Not that it has to happen. That's the thing. That's why invalidations are so important in this market. But let's bring up the MDX liquidations indicator. And I've mentioned this in several streams lately, but it's important to really repeat this type of thing because it's very important. Is no matter how we look at this, we are still in the middle of a big range. We still had that big liquidation event did go significantly lower yet. And down at those levels, we still have a whole bunch of liquidity building up down here. Now, this is a little more so middle slash, I'm going to refer to it as lower leverage, but it's actually the 10, 20x liquidation levels. Whereas the yellow and gold bars above us are more the 50 to 100x liquidation levels. So unfortunately right now, yeah, we're trading in the middle of a very large range. There's smaller ranges inside bigger ranges, obviously. But we are in the middle of a very large range and we have liquidity on either side of us. So things are risky, but that's where looking at very basic market structure, at least we can get some sort of an edge. So until this downtrend rather on the 4-hour breaks, unfortunately, it is what it is. On the weekly time frame as well, guys, this is something I mentioned in the Telegram earlier today. This line gives me great worry in the market right now. Now, I've actually been talking for about 3 weeks now that we ended up dropping this, basically this red box here. So where we got this order block here that acted as support and pushed us higher to our highest weekly candle close ever. We lost that level again relatively quickly. And for 3 weeks, we have respected that old support as new resistance. I have a huge concern with that. I was saying that, it's nice to see some signs of life from the bulls, the fact that we're holding our horizontal level of support. However, look at us right now. We are just continue testing this horizontal support. And as well, it is lining up with this diagonal support. And unfortunately, right now, it's really looking like, still the weekly candle is early. Obviously, it just started, well, whether you want to say this morning or last night, whatever, but this candle has 6 days left on it. So there's a lot of time, but things could get ugly. We turned an order block into a breaker block on the weekly time frame. It lined up with our 152-week cycle if we are going to continue the same 4-year cycle. Now, I have mixed feelings about that. It doesn't have to hold that way, but the fact that we are at about that timeline and we are flipping order blocks into breaker blocks, aka support into resistance, and as well potentially losing both these weekly trend lines, those are some very big concerns to me, you guys. Now, this is the logarithmic chart, so if you have a regular chart, it would actually look a little bit different, and this diagonal trend line would actually be a little bit lower. But at this time, this is a very good looking trend line. The fact that it has so many exact touch points, it has 2 there, 3, and really even this candle up here, we basically touched it there. So we have at least 3 perfect touch points on that upward trending diagonal support line. So at this point, if we lose horizontal and diagonal support and flip that into resistance, I hate to say it, guys, but that looks more and more like lights out. Obviously, anything can happen. It's good to have invalidations. I'm not saying that this has to be the end of the bull market, but there's a lot of red flags, and to completely ignore them just because I feel like we should go higher because we haven't had a crazy parabolic run to end the cycle. Anything can happen. That big liquidation event that we had a couple of weeks ago is a perfect example that anything can happen. Everyone was saying that this move was so unpredictable, but guys, in the Telegram, I even mentioned when I went short, I did a couple of live streams saying that I was taking shorts up here. I was 2 days in advance. I was ready for that move. It happened a lot faster than I was thinking it would, but it was very much on my radar. We got the move. It just happened, 20 times faster than I was expecting, basically. But as it stands right now, this is another thing that I want to point out, actually, is so depends how you feel about this trend line. But speaking of diagonal trend lines, we had this very nicely respected trend line, just taking our couple of bottom wicks here. We got this little close below. Now that did act as a bit of a swing fail, as often happens, but it was also a warning, just like a horizontal level. When we break a level, often you get a retracement and then the move continues. And notice that we broke that support, get our little bit of a retest, test the Stuber fib perfectly, and then we set another lower low. So at this point, even when we got below it the second time, look how well we respected old support as new resistance. So there's a lot of things lining up that things just don't look all that great for Bitcoin right now. I hate to say it, guys, but it's just not looking good. That being said, we are at potential low time frame support right now, just because if I look at this, I am not taking this just because I'm not very bullish right now. But as far as bullish setups, I mean, we do have a lower low. We broke that lower high. So much like what I was talking about before, often we have that structure break and then we pull back to my fibs, and notice we have tested the 786 perfectly pretty much there. We are already halfway up to the 0.5 fib though, right? It's obviously a little bit late for something like that. I'm not interested in it anyways at this time. But just worth mentioning that, yeah, I'm not saying that it's necessarily time to short right now. I mean, the time to short was when I was talking about it the last 4 days, very vocally about resistance being there. But even just looking at this new structure, actually, what's something I want to point out as well, something had caught my eye before with the trend master, actually, that we had lower trending sell signals on the 5-minute, which I often use as a strategy as well. See, we obviously have a much lower buy signal, much lower sell signal. And that sell signal, basically, we got that pivot from that retest of that diagonal trend line I was talking about. But if I pull a fib from our lower sell signal, because this is where we got our pivot from, to where we bottomed, notice where we ended up facing resistance again. Everybody started getting bullish. Hey, we are getting back up towards resistance. Time to be bullish and open longs, right? You see it time and time again. But we tested that 786 absolutely perfectly. And we have so far hit the 2 targets as far as the scalp targets go. So as long as this downtrend is continuing, I mean, the MDX ALGO, or the MDX trend master rather, indicator is just pointing out this downtrend. We keep printing lower sell signals, lower buy signals. So none of these buy signals are really playing out because they're trending to the downside. They're fighting the trend basically, whereas all of these sell signals are playing out very well so far. So just some important structure to go over there. Aster, you guys know that I was mentioning I was in a beautiful Aster position. I am not in it anymore. It got stopped at break even. But basically yesterday, was that yesterday? Yeah, where we basically shot right off my swing fail box, right up to that 0.5 fib. It was like a 40% move in something like an hour or two. Absolutely beautiful. Ended up hitting my first target. Typically I had already taken profits along the way, but by the time we hit that, I only left half my position running. The remaining half got stopped at break even. So be it. It is what it is. That being said, let's look for potential support here. And again, we are at potential support, just like with Bitcoin on the lower time frame, right? If I pull a fib something like this, because I mean, I have mixed feelings about this. That would be treating this as our low, this as our lower low. So this would be our lower high, which we broke. However, when we stay zoomed out like this, notice that this wasn't necessarily the previous low because this wick was actually lower, in which case this would be our confirmed lower high. So mixed feelings on that chart. Zcash, this is one that I had mentioned yesterday on stream as well. I had pointed out the fact that, and I never did take this long, by the way, unfortunately. I've been more so scalping shorts on this one, even though it is fighting the trend a little bit. I had mentioned this break of structure here in yesterday's stream and mentioned that it's very possible if we pull the fib and chase the price, basically, that we end up coming back to my fib pocket. And we actually did several times, right? We got our 0.6 to our 0.5 fib, 0.6 to our 0.5 fib, 786 rather, and 786, 886, and all the way to the rest of the fibs. So if you did play that, yeah, that setup played out beautifully. Like I said, I never took that myself. Also been warning about things like Solana and Ethereum, that basically everything, much like Bitcoin, we're kind of in the middle of a large range and we still have those lower trending sell signals on the 4 hour. And I thought that it made a lot of sense that we end up coming down and retesting support of this range. So at this point, I don't even have any long orders set. It's just that, we still aren't at support, and this move wasn't anything too crazy. We had that lower sell signal trading sideways along that resistance, just like Bitcoin, just more so on an indicator point of view rather than straight structure, but just traded sideways at resistance all weekend and then dumped this morning. So again, nothing all too crazy happening, but volatile, yes. So definitely be careful out there. Obviously, the markets are very dangerous if you are not used to this kind of volatility. If you're ever entering a trade, always make sure you know like how far your invalidations are, understand how big your losses are going to be if your trade goes against you. Use tight risk management. That's why I wait for pullbacks rather than playing breakouts, because it keeps your invalidations way tighter. Being a good trader isn't all about winning every single trade. It's about also managing your losses and keeping those losses small compared to your wins. So and guys, for those of you who are interested in learning and just seeing more examples of these types of trade strategies, some of my trade setup ideas, just how I pull Fibonacci's, how I look at market structure, you just want to see more of my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code or click on the link in the description down below to get into my private Telegram there. So absolutely beautifully. Here we have a few testimonies of some of our members absolutely crushing it out there. So guys, if that is something that interests you, like I said, QR code is on the screen there. Yeah, what else? Catch up on the chat here, you guys. How are you all feeling about the market? I hope you guys are crushing it, not only surviving, but thriving as well. If you guys do appreciate these live streams, you appreciate me sharing some of my personal trade strategies and just keeping a level head in this market, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It goes a long way for such a new channel like this. It really helps the algos. So really appreciate that. Really appreciate you guys being here with me in general. Thank you so much for continuing to join, because I see so many familiar faces being here every single day. Love to see it. Yeah, exactly. So the noise, that's a good comment there. The noise speeds up the moves already in the charts. That is an excellent point. Talking about this capitulation that we had, that big liquidation event. Yeah, 2 days ahead of time, I was ready for that move, although it happened way faster than I thought it would. So I don't think that Trump's announcements of tariffs caused that move, but it definitely added fuel to the fire and made it happen a lot more violently. So whether or not it would have happened, I was just kind of expecting it to happen over a month, not a few hours. So yeah, exactly. Those fundamentals can speed things up, but generally speaking, the chart structure is already there, giving us that early warning side. If you're trying to look for early warnings and have an edge on the market, you're not going to get information early. However, you can read charts early. So that's our biggest edge on the market as far as trading goes. Obviously, investing and trading are two very different things. Yeah, fundamentals matter for investing, but with trading, charts go a lot further. We have someone on short on hype on the 4 hour is a valid Stuber from 51.4 to 21.2. Let me bring up hype real quick. That is one that I meant to look at today, actually. You said the 4 hour, and you said from 51 something. Yeah, so I'm guessing you are talking about this type of a setup. And yeah, I would say you absolutely nailed that, because for a few reasons. One is we had this low followed by a lower low, thus confirming this as our lower high. But as well, on top of that, with the Trendmaster indicator, I also have a lower sell signal. So that confirms as confluence for that being a good pivot point. And now at this point, we even have another lower sell signal. So this would be my confirmed lower high on the trend, basically. So yeah, good eye. I assume that's the one you're talking about anyways. Brian, good to see you here. Good to see you here live, my friend. Thank you. Um, the heating map, as the heat map shows lots of liquidity above on BTC, Solana, and BNB would be possible for a short squeeze. And I absolutely agree with that too, right? That's why I have invalidations. That's why I'm not opposed to going higher. It's just that we have to be ready for anything, right? So this isn't exactly a heat map, but liquidations map, basically same thing. There's liquidity trapped either way. But yes, there is absolutely liquidity to be grabbed right back at all-time highs, right? So I don't want to say it's completely off the table. It's just that unfortunately, I always go market structure first and look for indicators as confluence second. And unfortunately, as it stands right now, that market structure is still leading me to be bearish at this point. So, anyways, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So once again, if you do appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And like I said, if you want more examples of how I pull fibs, how I look at market structure, all that sort of stuff, just want to see more examples of my trade setup ideas, just important levels I'm watching and all that sort of good stuff, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen, get in my Telegram. With that, thank you so much for being here with me once again, my friends. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.